You are watching Xirtus.
Robot is a Slavic extension for Marxism because the word itself comes even from the Sanskrit word. I think also Arbeit, robot. So in German, Arbeit, right? That means job or work. Arbeit, and the
Bite
camps, you know,
automatons. I mean, I think
yeah.
of Gollum. I think of Golems.
Right, but
Arbeit
as,
macht
as you,
frei.
if you were to look in the original AI for the film AI, the proposals for AI that Kubrick commissioned these people to write this thing, like in his own handwriting, he emphasizes the distinction between a golem and what he's talking about here in AI. Like, so he says, like, basically this isn't the same thing. Why? Because the golem is made through an organic process. Thomas is hip to this, I'm sure, but like that the golem, they're using manure and like all this, like they go the thing, make the seal, but it's still we're still co-creators with the golem. Like in other words, it's a literal organic act of creation. Whereas like in AI, part that Spielberg kept in is the idea that there's orga and there's mecha, and so Kubrick was emphasizing that the mecha isn't actually the same directive or order as a real golem. So it's like imitating a golem, which is like an imitation of an imitation, basically. So
plus a golem technically has like an on and off switch, which isn't the same that applies to say like a homunculus. A homunculus, you like once it gets life or spirit or whatever, once it turns on, you have to kill it to turn it off. There's no other like on or off switch.
Right. You can't exactly, and that's why I think in Kubrick's own, like in his own rationale, like in his own mind, the way he made sense of things, like when you see that thing from Michael Herr. From the Vanity Fair article where he's talking about Kubrick showing him his computer room at a time when hardly anybody had computer rooms, right? And he's just like he's showing the guy the equipment, and they're walking out of the room, and he's like, "Aren't you going to turn them off?" And he turns to him, and he's got this like knowing look in his eye, and he goes, "They like to stay on."
Yeah, they do.
And that is so loaded with what you're just describing. Like you don't have to turn these things off. They prefer to stay on it, which is true for analog equipment in general.
We're just going right back to Metropolis. Like we're circling Metropolis.
We are in Metropolis, I'm convinced, right now. Like everything's coming to a head. We're like approaching the end of Metropolis. That's what's happening.
They have better Moloch rituals, though. We don't really have the cool ones. We just have like war.
What do you mean? What do you mean? We don't have the
Hey,
Moloch
yo,
ritual.
is Moloch the big owl? Moloch is the big owl, right?
No, Moloch is the bull.
Yeah,
the giant bull.
But oh god, thank you for that. What's it? Washington D.C. Congress owl Moloch. Do I have to do this? If you turn the owl upside down, you all know what I'm talking about. This is the owl, right, around the Congress building. But if you turn this upside down, how do I even begin to do this? I have to like take the picture.
And the owl's on top of a pyramid, and then adjacent to that is an upside down star.
Right, and isn't the tip of the upside down star actually Albert Pike's grave? I think Scott Onstadt points that out in Secrets in Plain Sight.
Is it? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't.
That was actually. That was my first question when I met Scott Onstadt. Is I was like, dude, I have to know the syntax of how you got to Albert Pike's grave, because I was like, did you start with that? And then come to like everything directs towards that, or were you just like, where does this lead? And then it's just like, of all places, it was Pike's grave. And he said the syntax was he was just looking at the geometry, and then he was like, what is the significance of this point here? Zoomed in, then saw it was Albert Pike's grave.
You see the owl here. Here's the head. Here's the heart. But this upside down becomes the bipedal Moloch's phallus, which is the same image but upside down. Now he has these legs for his ears and his horns that emerge, right? So there is this inversion thing for Moloch and the ISIS protectorate.
Why Will is saying that, I imagine, is because if you watch either the documentary from Alex Jones or John Ronson, you can see that Alex Jones repeatedly keeps saying Moloch, and he keeps changing the pronunciation. Sometimes he'll be like Moloch, I don't know, like he doesn't know, but he's foaming at the mouth over the thing, and he's kind of like feeling around totally in the dark, literally, and he's just like, and this is like 2000. He's just trying to understand what the frick these guys are into, and he's just like, is it Moloch?
I've come full circle on this because it used to be a pet peeve for people to call an owl Moloch, but I've come full circle just because Moloch, even itself, is really, I think it was a combination of Malik, which meant king, and then Molk, which was a sacrificial ritual, MLK. And if you did a Molk ritual, then that ritual would start to be ascribed to certain gods, and then those gods would start to be considered like Molochian gods or call them Moloch themselves. But Moloch,
right.
the way that we use it, just means sacrifice.
Is
so
that
in
right?
That case, it refers to like Baal, usually Baal Hammon, or like
I was about to say,
Baal.
yeah. Then we like don't sacrifice your children to Baal is in the Old Testament,
right? And technically, like that process of sacrificing your child to Baal would have been called Molk or Moloch. So it kind of gets conflated. But then ultimately, when people are talking about Bohemian Grove, they're talking about the cremation of care, and cremation of care is a mock human sacrifice. So technically, you've got that Molk back in there. So I mean, I'll allow it. I'll allow Moloch and the owl to be related because of Bohemian Grove, but the owl itself was not part of Moloch.
No, the owl is the protector of the secrets of Isis, right? So the secrets that the warlocks are not supposed to reveal.
Is that not Mithra?
To
Are we looking at Mithra?
No, this is Astarte or Ishtar. Starbucks.
Okay. And she was associated with the owl in part because she was known as like the screeching god. Like in the middle of the night, if you heard something screeching, that it like she was making that noise, and that the owls are also the other animal that would make this noise. It just sounded like screaming.
That's fun.
Yeah, which relates to the Qliphoth, I think. What is it? What is
it? And it gets into too, like all of the original demons, if you like oversimplify it, they were all wind gods, and that was because like as the wind would blow, it would make that same screeching noise. So like the association between her and the rest of demons kind of spawns from that.
It's a stridulum. Is that what that is? Or the alternative name for the visitor means to screech or scream, I believe. Stridulum. It's Italian, maybe, I forget. But anyway, you know what? I gotta say, if we're on this topic, it's kind of like, I don't know if you call it. I get annoyed when I see tweets and stuff with like that little clip from the Chicago World's Fair, where you have people sometimes think it's just from a movie or something, but it was a production that happened. But they'll have the children being sacrificed to Baal or whatever. And then they'll be like, look at this effed up thing that they did at the World's Fair. And it's like, I don't know. I can't remember how long it was. Was it 7-8 hours or something? It was like a full day production of the entire Old Testament, like for the most part, like just like this huge feat at the World Fair for this thing. And they'll take this little clip and they'll be like, look at these sickos. And it's like, this is one moment.
One kid in public, and
all of a sudden you're Larry the goat fucker. I'm sorry, it's so weird. yeah. But but the context is that this is in the midst of the entire Old Testament, and we're looking at a clip from the middle of it, and they're treating it that this is what it was, and it's like, dude, they're literally like going through the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That annoys me, but whatever.